Next on Currents News, the Child Victims Act is now law. Reaction from abuse survivors is coming up. A thief is caught on camera inside a Catholic church in Manhattan. What was stolen and the latest on the manhunt to catch him. She's considered the Pope's favorite nun and she's being evicted. Sister Norma Pimentel, the champion of migrants, has 90 days to get out.
This is Karen and Rishi's wedding album from 1969. I'm Emily Druby, and coming up we'll show you what makes their 50-year marriage work.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. The Child Victims Act is now law in New York. Governor Andrew Cuomo signing the controversial legislation this morning. It sets new rules for survivors of child sex abuse. Currents News' Timothy Harfman reports on Cuomo's action and reaction to it.
Congratulations, the bill is signed.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo making it official to a round of applause. At the New York Daily News office in Manhattan, the governor telling survivors of abuse he stands with them.
This is society's way of saying we are sorry.
The Child Victims Act raises the statute of limitations to 55 in civil cases, opens up a one-year window for all past victims of child sexual abuse to file a civil claim no matter how long ago the abuse took place, and victims have until the age of 28 to press criminal charges. There's been a battle in Albany for years between the Catholic governor and the Catholic Church, with previous versions of the bill criticized for targeting the church while ignoring abuse in secular society. Last month, the New York State Catholic Conference withdrew objections to the legislation when the statute was brought in to include public institutions. Bishop Nicholas DiMaggio told Currents News that there are still shortcomings.
There's no systematic way that people can get retribution. Because it's going to be mixed up in the court system, and that'll take forever.
The bishop reiterated the diocese's commitment to stand with survivors and said the new law is now fair because its scope extends beyond just the church.
It's not an institutional problem of the church. It's a problem of individuals who are in the church and a problem of society.
Governor Cuomo said he always separated his official duties as governor from his Catholic faith.
It's hard to take on your own church. There are a courageous few for whom it's not about politics. It's about making change, even when the change will cost you politically.
New Yorkers Anthony Raiola and Rafael Mendoza, clerical abuse survivors, spoke about the new law moments before the governor signed it.
Extremely happy. I think it's about time. These people, the diocese needs to be accountable.
I'm thrilled. I'm happy this is going through because I know I'm not the only one that's gone through something like this, and I just want, justice.
In Manhattan, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
Catholic funeral services for NYPD Detective Brian Simonson, killed in the line of duty, will be held next week. The 19-year veteran is being hailed as a hero after responding to reports of an armed robbery in Queens on Tuesday night. When Detective Simonson arrived, bullets started flying and he was hit by friendly fire. The family will receive friends as they gather to say their final goodbyes at St. Rosalie Catholic Church on East Montauk Highway in Hampton Bays next Monday from 7 to 9 p.m. and on Tuesday from 2 to 4 p.m. and from 7 to 9 p.m. A Mass of Christian burial will be celebrated at St. Rosalie's on Wednesday at 10 a.m. and a Mass for the intention of Detective Simonson will be offered at Holy Child Jesus Church on 86th Avenue in Richmond Hill, Queens on Saturday, February 23rd at 5 p.m.
Nicholas Dworet, Aaron Feiss, Jamie Guttenberg.
Names of just some of the students gunned down 1 year ago today in the Parkland, Florida school massacre. Today, many people around the nation observed a moment of silence to commemorate the first anniversary. Natasha Chen reports the story from Parkland.
At 10:17 this morning, students across Florida stood silent. The tribute honoring the 17 people who died 1 year ago at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School.
1 year ago, when Alyssa was brutally shot down and taken from our hearts, and it is very painful.
A year ago today, there was chaos and confusion during the Valentine's Day shooting rampage. But now a peaceful memorial garden stands outside the school. A sign with the school's unofficial slogan, MSD Strong, hangs above.
Today is a day that we are calling a day of service and love to honor the victims.
In almost an instant, student survivors became activists and made it their mission to campaign for gun reform.
This is our generation's Vietnam War, except the war is in our country.
They crossed the country holding protests.
Fight for your lives before it's someone else's job.
And rallies.
We were the only people that could have made this movement possible.
Since the shooting, 26 states and Washington, D.C. passed varying gun control measures.
We're really seeing a lot of reasons to look to the future and see hope.
But after the year of activism, today is a day for silence. In Parkland, Florida, Natasha Chen, Currents News.
The Parkland shooting inspired new laws in many parts of America to stop the onslaught of gun-related deaths. But since those 14 students were killed in Florida, nearly 1,200 more children have lost their lives to guns in the United States, and that's according to data in today's New York Times. Catholic bishops are at the forefront of the fight to curb gun violence. National correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, Christopher White, joins us now with more on what's happening. Christopher, always so good to talk to you. In the year since Parkland, my goodness, it's been a year. What have the Catholic leaders accomplished?
Well, Liz, the bishops have continued to reiterate that they favor sort of comprehensive, sensible gun control legislation. So, mandatory background checks, a total ban on assault rifles, and really an elimination of the vast majority of handguns and severe control over that.
Let's talk specifics. Who has emerged as some of the top clerics that are speaking out against the issue?
Liz, it's been arranged both ideologically and geographically. Okay. We've had Cardinal Blaise Tupas of Chicago, who in a sense has been one of the leading voices on this. Cardinal O'Malley in Boston has frequently talked about this, but also some unknown sort of quieter folks. Bishop Bill Walk in Florida, Archbishop Tom Winsky in Miami, among the voices that have joined to sort of fight on this issue.
Let's take a look ahead going forward. What sort of initiatives are expected from Catholics on the issue of gun violence at the grassroots level?
Yeah, we really have a national impasse on this issue. So what we're going to see is, I think, more efforts like Father Mike Flager in Chicago, who has sort of brought the kids from Parkland to his parish to sort of take the level, the message to the street level. So I think we'll see a lot more marches, local church efforts to sort of buy back guns off streets, that sort of initiative.
All right, Christopher, thank you very much for that report.
Liz.
Turning now to another developing story, Amazon saying thanks, but no thanks to New York. The news broke this morning when the company announced it was canceling plans to build a sprawling complex in Long Island City, Queens, and create 25,000 jobs. The deal ran into fierce opposition from some city and state lawmakers complaining about financial subsidies to one of the world's richest companies. Amazon blamed those politicians for its decision to pull out of Queens. Mayor de Blasio said Amazon threw away the opportunity to do business in the greatest city in the world. Governor Cuomo pointed the finger of blame directly at the state Senate, accusing them of putting narrow political interests above their communities. Rio Grande Valley Catholics Charities and its renowned director, Sister Norma Pimentel, are being ordered out of a migrant help center in Texas. City officials in McAllen, Texas, issued the vacate directive after complaints from neighbors. The center has to be gone within 90 days. Sister Norma, one of the Pope's favorite nuns, explained her work to Currents News' Tim Harfman when he was at the border with U.S. bishops last summer investigating the family separation controversy.
We are a country of laws, but we're also a country that has compassion, and we want to make sure that as people of any faith, we want to make sure that we can uphold human dignity.
Sister Norma says she will find a new location for the Migrant Help Center. Since 2014, her Catholic Charities operations have helped 150,000 migrants. Breaking developments at this hour on the scramble to prevent another government shutdown. The White House is saying President Trump will sign the deal hammered out in a bipartisan agreement. At the same time, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says the president will declare a national emergency to get the money he needs for the border wall. Kristen Holmes has more from Washington.
Members of Congress forging ahead, voting today on a bipartisan deal to avoid another shutdown. and fully fund the government through September.
When the Senate votes on the agreement, we'll be voting to avoid a second partial shutdown and provide the certainty of a fully functioning federal government.
The compromise deal includes $1.375 billion for 55 miles of new border barriers, funding for 75 new immigration judges, as well as money for humanitarian aid, improved technology at the ports of entry, and hundreds of new Customs and Border Protection personnel.
Vote on it.
While the deal has gotten praise from both congressional Republicans and Democrats,
So here we are, with a solid deal in front of us.
This bill will be 21st century border security.
President Trump has complained to allies that Republican negotiators were outplayed by their Democratic counterparts. The $1.375 billion secured for border barriers, far below the $5.7 billion the president originally demanded.
Let's all pray that the president will have wisdom to sign the bill so the government doesn't shut down.
In Washington, Kristen Holmes, Currents News.
America has a new Attorney General tonight. William Barr won Senate approval this afternoon in a 54-45 vote and was sworn in shortly afterwards. This is Barr's second stint as Attorney General, having held the job under President George H.W. Bush. He's now in charge of the Justice Department and Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller. He pledged to the Senate he wouldn't interfere in the Mueller investigation of the 2016 presidential election. In Virginia, the state's 2 Catholic dioceses have released the names of clergy deemed credibly accused of sexual abuse of minors. In the Diocese of Arlington, 16 names were released after 2 former FBI agents working for the diocese concluded their investigation. In the Diocese of Richmond, 42 names, with the most recent case dating back to 2007. According to spokesmen for each diocese, none of the clergy accused are in active ministry. A sea change of progress in fighting sex abuse in the Louisville Archdiocese is being reported by Archbishop Joseph Kurtz and independent investigator Mark Miller. The layman, a former U.S. attorney and state police commissioner, found 48 men credibly accused of sexually abusing children since the 1930s. All but 1 are deceased. Since the Dallas Charter in 2002, Miller described a distinct sea change in the way abuse allegations are handled. There's a lot more news headed your way. The crime is caught on camera. Details about the valuable items stolen from a Catholic church. It's an important Vatican job that not a lot of people know about. Now an American holds the post. Who he is and what he does. Coming up. Bishop DiMaggio led a large delegation from the Brooklyn Diocese to World Youth Day in Panama. He shares his experience in tonight's Into the Deep segment. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@thesalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. On the Upper East Side, police are on the lookout tonight for a man who stole from a prominent Catholic church. Detectives searching for this man, distinctly dressed in a fur-lined floor-length coat, as he stole 4 brass candlestick holders from St. Monica's Church on East 79th Street. The Manhattan parish is 140 years old and is often frequented by prominent cardinals, including the head of the New York Archdiocese, Timothy Dolan. The parish says the stolen candlesticks are worth $3,000. The NYPD is asking for the public's help in identifying the suspect in the church theft. Anyone with information should contact Crime Stoppers at 800-577-TIPS or send a text to crimes, then enter TIP 577. Protecting people from artificial intelligence topped the agenda when the Pope met with the president of Microsoft. Brad Smith and Francis talked for about 30 minutes on ways to ensure the technology is used for the common good. The Vatican is concerned about the ethical implications of artificial intelligence and is setting up 2 major meetings about that in the near future. Tonight, the church has a new Camerlengo. While that title is not a familiar one, he's a key person who swings into action at a crucial time. The Pope today picked an American for the post. Melissa Butts is in St. Peter's Square with that story.
Since the death of Cardinal John Louis Taran in early July, the Camerlengo position at the Vatican has been vacant. But this is no longer the case. The Camerlengo is the person who certifies and announces the death of the Pope to the public and also destroys his ring so that no future Vatican documents can be falsified with his seal. Pope Francis named Cardinal Kevin Farrell the new Camerlengo. He currently serves as the prefect of the Dicastery of Laity, Family and Life.
I was shocked, I was surprised. I, told the Holy Father that, yeah, I'd accept, but on one condition, that he speak at my funeral. So, what more can I say? To be quite honest with you, I have never thought of anything like this.
All joking aside, he presumes the nomination at this point in time is not significant of health problems with Pope Francis, but rather a task the Holy Father hadn't gotten around to doing.
I guess somebody put a piece of paper in front of the Holy Father sometime recently and said to him, Holy Father, you have to name a Camerlengo. It's part of the structure of the church. And I'm sure he said, oh yeah, you better get me a list of all the cardinals.
Upon the Pope's death, Cardinal Farrell will be the Vatican City head of state until a new Pope is elected, informing the College of Cardinals on news the Pope normally would receive. While the Camerlengo position isn't very demanding on a daily basis, it is historical, dating all the way back to 1147. Now in 2019, we have Cardinal Kevin Farrell. At the Vatican, Melissa Butts, Currents News. Back to you in New York, Liz.
All right, Melissa, thank you very much. The Holy Father made history himself when he hosted the World Youth Day in Panama, the first ever in Central America. Already, we have seen an impact from the celebration of the faith. There's been a surge in vocations. To talk about how the evangelization event affected the Brooklyn Diocese, Bishop Nicholas DiMaggio sits down with Ed Wilkinson for this week's Into the Deep. Ed.
Thanks, Liz. And as we saw a couple of weeks ago, we sent a large delegation to World Youth Day, and Bishop DiMaggio was with that delegation. Here to tell us about his experiences, Bishop DiMaggio. Bishop, thank you so much for being with us. The World Youth Day looked like it was a great success. You know, the Holy Father seemed to keep things pretty level. He didn't say anything too outrageous this time. There were no time bombs. He didn't step on any mines. Do you think this was by design, that he wanted this to go smoothly?
I really don't know that, but it did go very smoothly. His talks were very inspirational, uplifting for the young people. He was able to get his points across, and he left a very positive impression on the young people.
There were some commentators in the press were saying that there were things that they thought he should have spoken out more about, particularly like the sexual abuse crisis. He seemed to not say too much about that. He just mentioned it once or twice. Do you think it was appropriate for him to kind of gloss over that issue?
I don't think that was the point of the World Youth Day. It's to inspire youth to consider their vocation in life. That was really not, I don't think it would not have been appropriate.
Mm-hmm. How did you interact with our delegates down there? You met we had about 200 from Brooklyn and Queens.
About 200. The first night I got there, we had dinner at the Canal, which is a beautiful restaurant overlooking the canal, so you can see the ships go through the locks. We had dinner, talked to them a bit, stopped at each table. Then the next day we had opportunity to have catechesis with them. Teaching them about the Sacrament of Reconciliation. There were 8-9 priests with us. They heard the confessions there. And then the next day we were able to sit down with them and talk about vocations. It was really well worth the time, because they had good questions and good interaction.
Are you optimistic that maybe some of the kids there will be thinking about a religious vocation?
Every youth day we get some vocations. Believe it or not, that's why it's worth the effort. Even if you get one, it's worth the effort. And people do make life decisions on these places. They're away from everything. They are inspired by seeing so many other young Catholics from all over the world. It's a moment of grace. And So I do hope we will see some fruit vocations there.
So the Holy Father always tells the young people to go back to their diocese and, make things messy a little bit, get involved, make sure that you're heard, your voice is heard. How do you hope that these young people will come back to the diocese and get involved here in this diocese?
Yeah, we do have follow-up meetings with the pilgrims, and they can come back and kind of debrief, say what happened to them there, what experience they have, what they start thinking about. So we just don't leave it as it is. We try to deal with it.
Yeah. We were saying on the air here that this is the whole event is like part a retreat and almost like a part Woodstock, Catholic Woodstock. How do you think that balances off? Do you think the kids really take it as a spiritual event?
Oh, they do. It's a fun event. It's an uplifting thing. It's not boring. I mean, they sacrifice. They walk for hours to get to the site, and they camp out. Much tents. They just have the sleeping bag. It's kind of was warm there, thank God. But no, it is kind of a Woodstock event in that sense that they roughing it, and they come together in friendship and help one another.
Good. Bishop, thanks so much. Okay. And Liz, throwing it back to you now.
Thank you, Ed and Bishop DiMaggio. And Ed, it really was a pleasure covering this event live with you. Still to come on Currents News, a Catholic couple in Queens is celebrating a marriage milestone this Valentine's Day. Hear their love story coming up. We'll be right back. Today, as you know, is Valentine's Day, and we're in the midst of National Catholic Marriage Week. Currents News' Emily Drewby introduces us to a Catholic couple who is a great example of the power of love and the pen.
My dearest Karen.
Every day, Karen and Richie Rodzinski write love letters to each other.
I feel warm-hearted and sensitive.
They credit their strong marriage on the deep connection they formed through reading and discussing these letters.
It can be the most minute thing. How do I feel about broccoli? It could be anything, but you're sharing, how you feel.
But you're really sharing deeply, and that's what it is. It really draws you. It's like kind of magnetic.
The Rodzinskis started the practice 40 years ago. While they have taken small breaks, they're currently on a 4,615-day streak. They keep all the letters in these dialogue journals.
They use dialogue questions in these letters as jumping off points. For example, this one is, what were the circumstances that told me that this was the one?
We always found we were much better dialoguing than not dialoguing.
The couple was married back in 1969 at St. Robert Bellarmine Roman Catholic Church in Queens.
I couldn't wait to be with him to spend the rest of our lives together.
I don't know where I would be or what I'd be doing without Karen in my life. Seriously.
They say forgiveness, their faith, and Worldwide Marriage Encounter, a Catholic pro-marriage organization that uses weekend experiences to strengthen marriages, has kept their marriage strong.
Anyone who's married should do a marriage encounter weekend. Anyone, whether you're Catholic, non-Catholic, whatever. On the weekend, you learn to focus on the things that keep a marriage strong. You learn communication skills that you can take with you.
It's during one of those weekends they learned the love letter exercise. On August 24th, for their official 50th anniversary, the Rodzinskis will once again walk down the aisle at St. Robert Bellarmine to renew and reaffirm their wedding vows, a way to celebrate a life filled with happiness, love, faith, and dialogue. In Bayside Hills, Emily Drewby, Currents News.
Oh, on that inspirational note, happy Valentine's Day to all of you. That is Currents News. I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.